Very recently, we've seen the creation of Sora 2.
We're seeing in front of our eyes the transition from algorithmic content selection in social media to algorithmic content generation.
This isn't about sharing content. The creation of the content is completely up for grabs.
Meta launches Vibes, app for AI-generated videos.
They're spending $1 billion on single employees, yet they turn to Midjourney and Black Forest to build this out.
The most shocking thing about this isn't how real it isn't how easy it is to use, it's the fact that it's free. That is shocking. OpenAI is bringing ads to ChatGPT.
The AI is going to be incredibly good at convincing you to do things, whether they're right or wrong. It's a very tricky balance. And because they're spending so much money on the data centers, there's a huge incentive to get really aggressive with the advertising.
Making all of the demonetization and democratization occur around the world are the ongoing AI wars. Let's jump in.
Now that's a moonshot, ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody, welcome to Moonshots, another episode of WTF Just Happened in Tech, here with my favorite friends on the planet, Dave Blundin. Good to see you, pal.
Hey.
Salim Ismail.
I am back.
You are back. And AWG, you're back from your top secret mission.
Thank God.
Thank God. We
Are you
missed
going
him.
to tell us anything about it?
To the extent that you think that we're on the verge of a sharp takeoff, a hard takeoff, if you will, I was traveling in Europe to see what the world looks like beforehand.
Yeah. So you're updating your baseline of what the world is before things go hyper exponential.
Exactly.
Amazing.
If it isn't a gentle singularity, I'd like to know what it looks like beforehand.
Okay, great. You know what I was doing last week? I was running my Abundance Longevity Summit. I had 50 of the world's top scientists, entrepreneurs who are focused on adding decades, maybe doubling our human lifespan. And it was awesome. So I walk away with the greatest confidence in the world that at least our friends and our subscribers are going to be hearing us talk about this stuff for the next 50 years. Or some version of ourselves.
That is really a frightening thought.
All right, everybody, welcome to Moonshots. And let me begin with a moment of thanks. I want to just give a shout out to one of our subscribers, Bill Jacobs, 386. I'm going to read a note he posted. We do read your notes. We love it. We're here to serve you. And he wrote, I am continually humbled by the amount of commitment and effort that's required to put this podcast together weekly. I'm not asking for anything in return, nothing that is, except to listen and hopefully learn before it's too late. The future is now, and I think I'm speaking for most of us here, how grateful we are. Thank you. Appreciate that, Bill. It's that kind of feedback actually makes it fun for us to serve our subscribers, serve all of you. Dave, you want to say anything to that?
Well, most of that thanks goes to the team behind the scenes. There's a huge amount of news out there that gets scoured down to the bullets that we think really, really matter to people. And then also to Alex's agents, which are getting bigger by the day. His AI force is coming up. I mean, it's incredible how rapidly the feedback coming from that agent force is filling the pipeline of possible news. And then, of course, the human factor whittling it down. So it's a big machine.
Yeah, and we do spend a good 20 plus hours. I was up at 4:30 this morning, going through everything, doing my background research and getting ready, because if I'm not ready, I will get completely decimated by the brilliance of these other three moonshot mates.
Well, I feel like I work really hard to keep up with everything going on. Then every time the team comes up with a deck, there's like 30-40% of it are things I hadn't even heard of.
Yeah.
And so it's great. It's really healthy for all of us, I think, to do this.
I mean, I can palpably feel the singularity coming. Salim, I remember you and I were on stage during the early days of Singularity University, and we would update our slides or the conversation or our shtick every 3 or 4 months.
It was. We actually worked it out as a faculty. The technologies between nanotech and biotech and neuroscience and robotics and AI and so on, the content was changing 20% a quarter on average. But this is 80% a week right now. So this is a whole other ballgame that we're in.
It really is. I look back at our pods from a year ago, and it's like, oh my God, that is so ancient history. Oh.
Shelf life dropping radically.
Yeah, it is. But it's becoming more and more fun. Let's jump in. I've labeled this first segment the video and audio gen battles. And let's begin with this video. Meta launches Vibes, app for AI-generated videos. All right, let's check it out. Now, if you're listening to this, not watching this on YouTube, it's just music, but it's beautiful imagery that Vibes has generated. This is through a partnership with Midjourney and Black Forest Labs. Alex or Dave, you want anything here?
I think there are probably two stories here. One is that we're seeing in front of our eyes the transition from algorithmic content selection in social media to algorithmic content generation. It's a pretty obvious story. The perhaps less obvious story is that the space is moving so quickly that Meta was apparently compelled to partner with third parties for such AI generation rather than using in-house first-party models. So yeah. I think this is a very quickly moving space and now very competitive as well.
I was going to say the exact same thing and riffing on it. You know, they're spending $1 billion on single employees. They have a $600 billion 3-5-year budget. Yet they turn to Midjourney and Black Forest to build this out. Well, that's because the really, really smart, creative people all want to do startups, and they don't want to join the big companies. So it's really encouraging for the startups because this, the other big labs are doing their own. Google and OpenAI are doing their own video generation. And it's encouraging for the startups that are right in the middle of the crosshairs to say, well, even here, we're thriving. So it's a good sign.
Every week, my team and I study the top 10 technology meta trends that will transform industries over the decade ahead. I cover trends ranging from humanoid robotics, AGI, and quantum computing to transport, energy, longevity, and more. There's no fluff. Only the most important stuff that matters, that impacts our lives, our companies, and our careers. If you want me to share these meta trends with you, I write a newsletter twice a week, sending it out as a short 2-minute read via email. And if you want to discover the most important meta trends 10 years before anyone else, this report's for you. Readers include founders and CEOs from the world's most disruptive companies and entrepreneurs building the world's most disruptive tech. It's not for you if you don't want to be informed about what's coming, why it matters, and how you can benefit from it. To subscribe for free, go to Diamandis.com/metatrends to gain access to the trends 10 years before anyone else. All right, now back to this episode. And so this is free. And the other thing that's interesting is they're generating a TikTok-like, swipe the video. We've seen X do that as well if you're watching on videos. And of course, it's not just Meta. We've seen VO3 at Google with their video generation. And very recently, we've seen the creation of Sora 2. So Sora 2 is launching viral AI-generated videos. And I'm going to share a video I created for myself and talk about how easy it is to create it. So let's check this out.
Suiting up for the ride. Helmet secure, pressure's good, visor locked. Let's make it count. Heading to the rocket, jumping in.
Cabin comm is live. You're looking good.
Strapped in and ready for launch. Let's go. 1. 2, that's 500, done.
Double our reach every 12 months. In 10 years, we've multiplied 1,000-fold. What else drives that curve?
Compounding data sets.
Each new user improves the model and makes the product more valuable, pulling in the next wave. Pair that with automation. When marginal cost drops towards zero, growth accelerates on its own.
Thanks for inviting me into the studio, Peter. I've been looking forward to sitting down with you on Moonshots.
Likewise, it's great to have you here. People have been asking for an episode that dives into AI and longevity.
Happy to help. It's one of my favorite.
That was fun to make. So if you were listening here, this is a version of me on the moon, then a version of me pumping 500 pounds in the gym, and then 6 or 7 of me's having a conversation about exponential growth, and then sitting down with Sam Altman for a Moonshots conversation. They didn't get the audio model right, and I'll have to re-record that. But it was pretty fun. Gentlemen, thoughts when you grade me on performance?
I thought a couple of things. One is It's as you connect this with the previous story, this is like Hollywood, TikTok, Spotify, all kind of merging into one thing. And I think Alex's point was really, really important, that this isn't about sharing content. It's about now the creation of the content is completely up for grabs in a new way. So I think all of that happens at the same time.
And the interface to create it is entirely voice and prompt. There's no coding and no interface. Like all of our lives, since the computer was invented, we've been learning incredibly complicated interfaces to everything, you know, from the microwave oven to the laptop to Chrome and Safari feeder. And all of that is about to disappear from the earth forever and just go to a straight natural language interface. And we'll see later in the pod, you know, much more important actually, software creation. But, you know, after that comes building creation and highway creation. And you know, all of that is going to be done through just a voice it into existence right out of the Star Trek holodeck.
It is godlike, right? First, you know, it's speaking the word and creating reality. It's going from mind to materialization. It's extraordinary.
I also think we're seeing video emerge as a first-class modality for frontier models. So right now, most people are interacting with the frontier models via text or images. Video is still this separate channel with a separate distribution mechanism. These are on a collision course. We're going to see the video form factor and the underlying model architectures, probably diffusion transformer based, merge into the more autoregressive transformer, presumably based text and image models. And one could even imagine the ultimate user experience here, maybe not the ultimate, but an intermediate UX looks something like a magic mirror that does this in real time. Right now, Sora 2 takes a few seconds to generate with fully realistic audio, realistic physics. The physics, if you ask Sora 2 to reproduce some generic, say, high school or college level physics demos, it's pretty amazing. So all of this ability to reason physical world models, if I ask you to think of a pink elephant, you will visualize in your mind's eye a pink elephant. Sora 2 and similar video models, once they're incorporated into the chain of thought for a frontier model, will enable entirely new, I think, classes of reasoning ability.
Yeah, it's got physics consistency, which is extraordinary. Salim, go ahead. I want to talk about how I made those videos. Yeah.
I asked it to create a video of a water dropping into a glass of dropping into a glass of water because it's a common image. It was extraordinary how accurate it was. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it has real world physics modeling built in. So I encourage everybody listening to actually try it out. I mean, when OpenAI does this, it's creating sort of a viral engine that is getting people, getting them from 800 million users up to 1 billion. But you need to get an invite code. Once you have the invite code, it's super simple. On your phone, you download the Sora app from OpenAI. You basically hit a few prompts, and it photographs you speaking 3 words or 3 numbers. And then as you look to the right, look up, look down, captures your face. And from there, fundamentally, it's a very simple prompt. And if the individuals like Sam Altman or others make themselves open for other people to use, and you can make yourself open for use or not, you can pull people into it. And it's pretty easy and fun. Yeah.
The viral loop now goes
super fun. Try it. You just got to try it. It's super fun.
The viral loop now goes from prompt to publish to explode in no time flat.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It used to take weeks at least, or now it's like nothing.
I saw a great podcast of Bill Gates talking about how we in the computer science world slaved away for 20 years just trying to get speech recognition alone to work. And I don't know if you remember, do you remember Lee Hetherington, Peter, from MIT? He's a crazy brilliant guy, like right up there, almost Alex level. He spent 20 years in Victor Zhu's lab trying to make speach recognition.
I remember Dragon Systems. Do you remember Dragon Systems?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that was one of the earliest voice recognition systems. It really is unfathomable how fast it's going. And we take the stuff for granted, which is insane.
That's the point. So Bill Gates made that exact point because he had, billions of dollars of R&D to try and make speech recognition work. And now it's an afterthought in the big neural nets. They do speech and then move to video, then move to video generation, and then they move to complex math and physics, all in 2 years. I mean, it's just so easy to take it for granted, but it's massive amounts of converging technologies that are suddenly unleashing new capabilities and so many opportunities to glue together the different components and build an incredible new experience. Yeah, everyone should reread The Future is Faster Than You Think. Peter's one of Peter's many great bestsellers, but it's all about the converging technologies. But I think when you wrote that book, there were maybe 8 or 10 things to consider. Now there's like 800.
Oh my God, we're just wrapped up our newest book, We Are as Gods, and it is so difficult to send it to the publisher.
When
no, I've got to add this.
When do you draw the
this.
line, right? When do you draw the line?
Yeah, it's insane. And by the way, Vibes and Sora 2, they're free. I mean, this extraordinary technology, again, the most shocking thing about this isn't how real it isn't how easy it is to use. It's the fact that it's free. That is shocking. Absolutely. Well, let's continue our journey on generation. Here is a product called Suno 5. It's AI-generated studio quality, lifelike vocals. You can basically create something that's a full 8 minutes run length. And just because we're called Moonshots, let's play a Moonshot thematic piece called Moonshots. All right, a Bond-like thematic Moonshots audio.
Can I give us a challenge?
Yeah, sure.
Before the next episode, we should all play with this and come up with our own versions of what the theme song should be for the podcast. And then we'll let the viewers pick which ones they like the best, and that becomes the theme song for the podcast.
Nick and Dana and the team are working in that in the background mode, so we might have just taken the workload off of them. But absolutely. All right,
that was my bid, if you will. I think it's probably also worth noting, again, in passing, musical Turing test passed. We barely discussed it. Anyone can compose a top 40 song or an opera. And this is the beginning maybe of disposable or casual art.
Wait, what would have been the test?
The ability perhaps to generate an undistinguishable from human Bond type song in this case, or top 40 song.
Yeah, we just passed that.
And Alex, I'm sorry I didn't give you credit for that, but thank you for playing. I mean, one of the most exciting things we get a chance to do is play with this stuff as it's coming out. And the good news is all of you can play with it too. So give it a shot.
So for $8 a month, we now have a personal Hans Zimmer. Like that's
at minimum, and quite a bit more.
Yeah. Making all of the demonetization and democratization occur around the world are the ongoing AI wars. Let's jump in. All right, Anthropic announces Sonnet 4.5, claims the best coding agent available. Alex, would you walk us through this?
Yeah, it's really remarkable what a single-minded focus on, call it code maxing or code gen maxing, is doing for Anthropic with its model. So in using this model, in testing it, one of my favorite test cases is to ask the model to single shot the generation of a cyberpunk first-person shooter. And Claude Sonnet 4.5 does an amazing job. It gets nearly all the way there with minimal handholding, and I have very high confidence that some iteration of Sonnet 4.5 will get all of the way there with visually stunning graphics, music, elaborate first-person controls. I think the risk that one can perceive on the horizon is, on the one hand, focusing on code gen is perhaps a very ambitious bet towards recursive self-improvement. If the code can write itself really well, maybe that's the critical path to an intelligence explosion. On the other hand, if it turns out that other modalities are important, like video, for example, that we were just seeing, or music, then the risk is that the single-minded focus on code gen in particular may not be critical path. And I suspect we'll know the answer in the next 6 to 12 months.
Dave, want to add something?
Well, shout out to Blitzy. The top benchmark on here, 82% on SweBench. The Blitzy got to 86.8 on that benchmark by combining models. So that'll go up a little bit now with Sonnet 4.5 under the covers. But just by hitting all the models and iterating a lot, you can actually squeeze in more performance out of these benchmarks. And this is pretty much maxed out now. They're working on a new benchmark with MIT for long form coding. So if your process is writing code for 8, 10, 12 hours, how do you benchmark the quality of the output? So it's a really cool new benchmark. We'll get into benchmarks later in the podcast too, because a lot of capabilities in the world that didn't exist a year ago. We have to have some kind of metric for all of them.
Yeah, I love the way these hyperscalers, these frontier labs, are all incrementing their software by 0.5, right? Sonnet 4, 4.5, Silicon 5. We've got Grok. Where are we on the Grok? Are we at Grok 4 now?
That's right.
Soon Grok
It's
5.
Probably also worth dwelling for just a few seconds on the autonomy length scale. So Sonnet 4.5 may be somewhat infamously at this point working for 30 plus hours straight. I recall in a past episode, we were talking about the characteristic autonomy time of some of the bleeding edge frontier models being 7 hours, and before 7 hours, 1 hour. If you had just taken Meter's original exponential fit for the amount of time frontier models can work independently and just extrapolated a mere exponential time, we'd be far below 30 plus hours. So if lots of reproductions hold true to this 30 plus hour time estimate, that would strongly suggest that, in fact, we're on hyper-exponential rather than an exponential in terms of autonomy, and really crazy things maybe start to happen in the next year or so if that's the case.
And Alex, Dario is in particular famous for really focusing on making what he would consider safe AI. And one of the final bullets here is that Anthropic, or Sonnet 4.5, has reduced its ability to lie and seek power by a factor of 10. So what does that mean? It's like, when you ask it to turn off and it doesn't, or if it's trying to aggregate resources, or it's lying to you, those are not good things.
There is an entire cottage industry at this point of for-profit and not-for-profit, basically red teaming labs that are fed early access to these frontier models that look for these sorts of traits. I think it's an interesting research level question as to whether power seeking, for example, is instrumentally convergent as a goal for superintelligence. Instrumentally convergent meaning that regardless of whatever the long-term goal that's assigned to the model or whatever it's prompted to do, whether if above some threshold of intelligence or superintelligence, it more or less is required to power seek. I've published research in that area. In my mind, this is still very much an open question regarding the so-called orthogonality thesis of whether the ultimate goal of an AI can even be decoupled from its intelligence level.
It would be super interesting to see how Gemini and XAI and OpenAI all rate on lying and power seeking of its models. Do you have any idea?
I see lots of different measures for this. It's difficult to register a uniform assessment across the industry.
Yeah,
that's a fun challenge, though. That could go bad in so many ways, but that'd be so fun. Like, let's put together a benchmark for how it lies.
How well it lies.
Let's see if we can prompt it into lying as much as possible.
Well, I could imagine, listen, there's an all-out competition between all these frontier labs. And if the way you get ahead is that your AI is more power-seeking than its neighbor, are you optimizing for it or against it? We'll find out. Yeah. All right, continuing on. Imagine with Claude. So live app creation, demo of Sonnet 4.5 that generates apps in real time. Let's take a quick look at this video, and then I'll ask you to tell us about it. Alex.
Imagine with Claude is still building software, but we've cut out the middleman. Instead of writing code that describes this text box, Claude just makes the text box. We've given it access to software tools that construct software directly and substantially faster. Claude isn't writing code in the standard way. It doesn't have to plan it all out in advance. Instead, it generates new software on the fly. When we click something here, it isn't running pre-written code. It's producing the new parts of the interface right there and then.
Amazing. So, Alex, I saw you were playing with it this morning.
We're living in the future, Peter, where the models are so high throughput, apparently, that now it's possible to do just-in-time code generation on every event. You click within a user interface within Imagine, and new code is generated on the fly. You can ask for new apps to be spun up on demand. They'll be generated on demand. And I think it's an interesting thought experiment to ask, where does this go in extremis when throughputs continue on their exponential or maybe hyper-exponential trajectory? And I suspect naively where this ends up is every single pixel is going to be generated.
Yeah.
Not just like vector art, not just UX, Windows icons, menus, pointers, every pixel.
And I imagine your version of Jarvis, your personal, entourage of agents are spinning up capabilities for you that they think you might need on standby, ready for you to request access to.
We could end up with a gray goo type problem on this because you could spin up an AI that says, no, I'm just saying it's somewhat of a positive thing, but it's going to be surreal because you create an AI that starts generating apps and we'll end up with billions of apps flooding the App Store. It's going to cause some interesting challenges on the.
But there will be no App Store. You will not be choosing. You'll not be choosing an app.
It'll be algorithmic, obviously.
It'll be the capabilities you need in the moment to achieve your objective.
Will be coded up as you're doing
materialized. Yeah.
Yeah. The term of art is at this point slop, and I'm a lot less concerned about slop overwhelming civilization than perhaps some folks. I think there are so many ultra high value transformative problems that will set AIs on while we're sleeping. I'm incredibly not worried that we're going to drown in slop.
I agree. I completely agree. Also, I think it's a good place. A lot of business leaders out there aren't reserving their compute, and they're like, "Well, I won't need that much, or I'll wait and see what happens." There's a great use case to show you, like, if you say, "Look, I want this software to exist in real time," it's entirely possible, but you have to have a lot of compute dedicated to you in order to make it happen in real time. How quickly can you imagine 400, 500 concurrent things that you want it working on? Very, very quickly. So if you have access to that compute, all of that can be created for you in real time, and it's an absolute joy to do. If you don't have the compute, you're not going to get it. The demand for this is so mind-blowingly big. And you just got to figure out, where am I going to get the compute to do exactly what we just saw?
Alex, how easy was this to use? What do you have to do to spin it up?
Trivial. So all I had to do was go to the Imagine with Claude site. I asked it first to generate a calculator app for me, create a calculator. It created a functional calculator. But most interestingly, as I was testing the calculator, clicking on each button in the calculator app, it was generating code in real time. So this is a transformative way of thinking. We're accustomed to historically thinking that there's a software development time and then later an execution time. And this completely blurs that boundary where even at execution time, every software event results in new code gen on demand. It changes the just-in-time paradigm.
So you don't have, as a coder, you don't have to think through every possible use of it. This is building out the use tree as it's requested.
That's right. And Werner Vinge, one of my favorite writers, used to write in Rainbow's End, another book other than Accelerando that I would highly recommend, write about what would happen when we have too many transistors too cheap to meter, as it were, and our transistor budgets go through the roof. I think this ends up being one of these use cases. If we have so much compute just sloshing around, the ability to delay app code generation until user event time, that's incredible, and that will certainly mop up lots of compute.
Yeah. We haven't heard much from, at least on our WTF episodes, about Claude over the last month. It's good to see Claude coming out, Anthropic coming out with some great products.
It's quietly winning in the marketplace.
Yeah. Let's go to OpenAI. OpenAI is introducing ChatGPT Pulse. So I love the idea. I haven't played with it yet. The idea being, in the morning when I'm using my ChatGPT voice and having a conversation with Ember, which is the voice model I'm using there, I have to think, okay, what's a unique idea or concept I just learned about that I want to speak let's talk about the FOXO3 gene and how it's impacting longevity, whatever the case might be. Here's flipping the model based upon all your conversations you've had with ChatGPT. It's actually coming up with topics you might want to learn about. So it's prompting us, and then we're prompting it back. Has anybody played with it?
I thought this was a really subtle but important thing where you're not querying it, it's querying you. And I think that starts a new vector of really interesting development.
Yeah, it feels a bit like a successor to tasks, which are also still available from within ChatGPT. But I think in my dream world, what I would love to see is perhaps in addition to being able to set sort of cron-tab style periodically scheduled tasks, if I want compute running on my own behalf while I sleep, I would love the ability to have long-running tasks on hard problems, single tasks that run for days or weeks on end, rather than just smaller tasks that run, say, once per day while I sleep.
Alex, give us an example of a multi-day or multi-week task that you would spin up right now.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. Go for it.
I want to hear what comes out of your...
I want to cure every disease. That's like a beautiful, well-posed task that is surely going to absorb many billions of dollars of inference time compute.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's great. I want anti-gravity. I want warp drive. I want a lot of things. All right. So, all right, let's move on here. Next up on OpenAI's docket is OpenAI is bringing ads to ChatGPT. So their new chief ad officer, Fidj DeSimo, has come on. And, what I find interesting is OpenAI is going after massive revenue streams. Dave, do you want to plug into this one?
Well, the ad revenue is inevitable. That's $300 billion for Google. It's all going to move over to AI conversations, and a lot of complexity to figure out there. She has a challenge on her hand trying to figure out how you balance. Like the AI is going to be incredibly good at convincing you to do things, whether they're right or wrong. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of revenue tied to that. And I think Meta did a very good job of balancing the newsfeed quality with promotions that are blended in. But it's a very tricky balance. And because they're spending so much money on the data centers, there's a huge incentive to get really aggressive with the advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that, but then there'll be consumer backlash and everyone will move to some other model. So that's a really hairy balance. But the AI is both the best ally you've ever had in buying things, but also, if it's misguided, could walk you down some seriously bad paths. So,
the trust seemed to be for it. Like, will you trust insights from an AI that has ads baked into it and has an ulterior motive? And so what do you do then?
Yeah, for sure. I think the ad model is ultimately going to disappear. I think there's a limited value here, right? Because once we have pendants or glasses and our AIs are able to see where we're focusing, like if if my retinal gaze is on that lamp behind Alex and I say, I love that lamp and I'm just focusing a lot on it, attention is going to equate to some level of interest, and my AI may be popping up and say, would you like me to buy that for you? Right? So rather than having an ad come, it's mostly just where am I focusing, listening to my conversations. And then the other thing that's going to be interesting is if I give my AI a surprise and delight budget, I say, hey, you can spend up to $500 a month to surprise me. And stuff starts showing up. Or it knows I'm running out of toothpaste, or, my T-shirts are run down.
I'll tell you, Peter, the two sentences you said back to back there, I'll tell you where the conflict is between the two.
Tell me.
You want your AI to surprise and delight you, and it absolutely will.
Yes.
Most consumer products are 70, 80, 90, 95% margin, huge margin, where there are two or more absolutely identical products.
Sure.
Two different sets of sunglasses, toothpaste, it makes no difference whatsoever. And if the AI says, well, okay, I'll get Crest instead of Colgate, 95% margin went to that company instead of that company. And so there's a huge amount at stake where the consumer is still happy either way. Where's that money all land? Right now it all lands at Google. And in the future, it's going to land on the AI advisors. So both things can be in harmony with each other. yet there's a massive amount of money under the covers. So it's still ad revenue, or it's decision making, routing.
But take
revenue.
it a step further, Dave, because my AI probably knows the exact makeup of the molecules in the toothpaste. It actually happens to know my taste buds better than I do and knows my genetic makeup. And it will order a toothpaste that is perfect for me that is 1/2 the price. And I know that it's maximized what's best for me. And, Google's not getting it. No one's getting it. The AI is buying it direct.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Because if you look at toilet paper as an example, you can buy it for literally 5% of the retail cost. Mm-hmm. And if you deflate the margin and say, well, the consumer is much happier, they're only paying 5%, but all the margin got sucked out of the value chain, then the marketing company at the front also isn't making any money. So what tends to happen is the opposite of that the marketing front end is complicit with the back end consumer products companies to keep the margins high. And the consumer just says, okay, fine, I'll just buy that toilet paper. And you don't think about it.
But do you think my AI could think about it and could sort of circumnavigate all of those price gouging companies along the way?
I think you're onto something really interesting there, which is packaged ecosystems where, the number of things you can buy is getting so complex and the number of choices is so complex. For a while there was an Eddie Bauer edition Ford Explorer. Mm-hmm. And it was for I've just bought into the Eddie Bauer package. I'll get the car, I'll get the clothes. It's just like part of the overall thing. And if you read Neil Stephenson, Diamond Age, everybody moves into these culture packages where the AI has figured out all the parts. I think that's a real thing. Just because complexity of decision making gets so high over time that you just want to join kind of like AARP as a group and
it's trusted, but it's also a brand affiliation, right? So I think one of the last moats that's going to exist someplace is going to be brands, where I want, because I'm showing my wealth or my affiliation, I'm seeing a lot more by the brands I'm using, but not on toothpaste. No one goes to my bathroom and says, hey, what toothpaste are you using? All right, let's move on. But just the point here, OpenAI is building revenue streams. And here's another one. They partnered with Stripe for instant checkout in ChatGPT. I think this is brilliant. The ability for OpenAI to generate revenue on the sales of products, starting with Etsy and soon Shopify. Who wants to weigh in?
I'll weigh in on this one. I think if you squint, we can see maybe the outlines of what at least near future superintelligence microeconomics look like, where you have you have some power law distribution, you have a long tail of consumer subscriptions or consumer ads or consumer affiliate fees for agentic commerce. Then you have a middle chunk where white collar, so-called knowledge work gets automated in part or in whole by AI. That's sort of the middle chunk of what turns the wheel. And then the head of the power law is solving all these transformative problems. I think Sam would say like curing cancer or curing all disease that are worth many trillions of dollars. And I think that the key question of our time, or at least of the near future, is what exact power law do these follow? Is it a fat tail with lots of consumers using Stripe-powered instant checkout to power a very fat tail? Or is it a very thin tail where almost all of the revenues that are flowing to the frontier labs to justify the soon trillions of dollars of capex to build data centers are all being driven by transformative inventions and discoveries, and the instant checkout, if you will, ends up being rounding error? I don't know the answer, but I think this is the defining constant.
And I think they're reaching for near-term revenues that are easy to get right now. But in the long term, it's going to be the invention of new materials, new biotica, all kinds of things. I mean, it's interesting. The number here is, by the end of 2025, it's projected $142 billion in consumer purchases via chatbots. And I think the one thing that we all have in common is a constraint on time. So if I'm in the middle of researching a product, and I'm in the midst of doing comparative analysis on OpenAI, and it pops up and says we have to buy it. I mean, it's
maybe, but maybe in the near-term future, the scarcity, I think you would say, of attention also gets alleviated, and we find ourselves in a post-scarce attention world.
Interesting. in which case, what, we shop around more?
We have more hours in the day.
Yeah, but we have so much more to do with those hours that, like, when you think about the software through voice that we were just doing, and also the Suno through voice, it's so compelling and so fun. You'll eat up every one of those hours
To
and
play.
want more.
Yeah.
So I guess those are harmonious statements. There's no, but I'll tell you one thing: when Alex says, "I don't know what's going to happen," you know you're going into crazy times.
Timelines are really short, and timelines I think are like 2 to 3 years at this point max.
I thought this was profound because this could be a big threat to Amazon.
Yes,
because if
this
I
is
can chat
directly-
and then basically go straight to the source of where something's being made. I've been using ChatGPT and Gemini to do comparison shopping for the last few months, and I don't buy anything. I was saying, "Hey, show me good alternatives of this or this or this," and it's remarkably good at crawling the web and finding all the stuff that I would take me ages to figure out. And now I can do direct commerce with it. That's huge.
Yeah. Otherwise, you would copy paste into Amazon and buy it there, probably, right? Amazing. And travel. I mean, it's interesting using a large language model for travel, saying I've got to be at this location by this time. Which airlines have the highest uptime reliability and get me there, and what's the travel time, and set up the schedule for me, and instantly it's there. And then it should say, do you want me to buy the tickets and set up the Uber for you? And, anyway, I think it's pretty...
I would just remind also, this is still nibbling at the edges of consumer spending. AI is going to eat the whole economy. So that starts to look like AI eating real estate expenses, AI eating healthcare, AI eating utilities and food. Right now, buying consumer packaged goods, this is just, not to diminish the CPG sector, but this is just nibbling at the edges right now of disruption.
I'll tell
Thank
you,
you for
Peter,
bringing this back.
Since Jeff Bezos is your friend, Lee Bosio, who used to run, he was a single-threaded leader for Alexa over at when he was at Amazon. He used to work for us, and Jeff Bezos saw this coming a mile away, and that is why he built out this massive investment in fulfillment, and eBay didn't. Because the interface is going to change for sure, and he can rely on the fulfillment side of it to route all that volume through Amazon. But he knew this was coming when he invested in Alexa.
We still haven't seen Alexa play out fully, right? Alexa is still very antiquated. We haven't seen Amazon's AI play yet.
Very much. It doesn't hold state, no memory. There's a lot to build there.
Well, you know what they're doing? So I had a call with the chairman of iBanking at the largest bank in England, and they're huge Anthropic and AWS fans. And I said, why? I said, well, because we want the AI to have client data, account data, payroll data, all this hypersensitive data, and Anthropic is the only company that can support it securely, and we run it all inside AWS's infrastructure. So what they did with warehouses and fulfillment on retail, they're also doing with digital compute and data center fulfillment in AI. So they're the same playbook, just moved over to the AI era.
It's interesting.
I think,
and Anthropic tends to be the friendly little brother to Google and others as well. They're well liked, well respected. We'll see how they team up. All right.
10 times less lying. We saw that on the other side.
And power seeking. Okay, I trust my Anthropic AI. All right, here we go. GDP Val measures performance of our models on real-world tasks. So it released tests for real-world tasks across 44 jobs and 9 industries, with GPT-5 and Claude Opus nearing expert quality, 100 times faster and cheaper. Alex, do you want to lead the conversation?
Sure. Well, as you know, Peter, I've beaten the drum in the past here on the importance of new evals, new benchmarks.
Yes.
This is a very important benchmark. OpenAI has alluded to this benchmark in the past, but actually looking at the benchmark, which is available open source for folks who want to look at the prompts, this feels like a benchmark for knowledge work. It's pretty diverse. And to the extent that you look at this chart and other charts that have been made available showing progress on GDP Val, which covers a number of different industries, lots of tasks, it appears very thoughtfully put together. If you just extrapolate by the law of straight lines, you extrapolate progress on the ability to perform all these real-world tasks, you predict that in the next 6 to 12 months, we're talking about substantially all knowledge work across a number of industries being superhuman as performed by AI. For some would say, I think that's a very short timeline. We're talking about evals literally solving the economy, or at least a good chunk of the knowledge work economy.
Yeah, it's here now. I mean, do not look for some decade future. This is the next year or two. One of the quotes here: the models completed tasks up to 100 times faster and cheaper than human experts, highlighting both their potential and the need for oversight. Salim, you were going to say?
Two points. One is, I remember, there was such a big shift in car making when you had a robot opening and closing a car door 10,000 times to test the hinges. Quality just went through the roof after that. And now we can have AI doing the same thing for this type of stuff. And what I thought was really powerful about this was, this isn't some kind of toy problem benchmark. This is real world stuff. And now we have the ability to gauge AI doing real world stuff. And now this becomes very tangible.
Fantastic. All right, let's go to yet another conversation here. This is a video I'm going to play with Brendan Foody, the CEO of Mercor, who Dave knows extremely well. And this is Mercor's AI Productivity Index. All right, let's take a listen.
Decided to test how well today's leading AI models can actually do your job. And the results are astounding. Introducing the AI Productivity Index, or APEX, an evaluation that measures how well we've automated the most valuable industries in the world. We studied model capabilities in law, medicine, consulting and finance, in partnership with industry experts in each domain. APEX is designed to give an accurate forecast of how AI is going to impact jobs. But this version just scratches the surface of measuring model capabilities.
All right, Brendan, catapulting yourself to the top of the class. How old is Brendan?
23, I think now. Yeah. Founded at 19. He's ahead of Mark Zuckerberg in terms of company valuation age, race to a billionaire age. So I don't know if anyone since Mark has been on that curve. And I tell you, as long as we're talking about Brendan, a whole bunch of inbound calls, people wanting to buy our Mercor stock from us. Like, it's a $10 billion valuation, right? And they're like, yeah, but if you look historically at people who've reached where Brendan is at that age, every one of them or almost all of them become whatever, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, whatever. So he's on a trajectory like nobody else, and everybody loves him. Now, you look at him on screen there. He's the guy everybody's cheering for. So it's pretty cool to see. I think these last two slides, back on the topic of the slides, really, really important. Because AI is so general purpose and so capable in so many areas. And Alex and I have had all kinds of torture trying to interact with the State House here, with other government officials, to get them to realize the urgency and the implications. It's so hard. But then when you throw a really good benchmark at it, it makes it much, much easier to explain why this is so urgent. So Brendan is taking on all things related to work productivity across all areas. And that's a really big ambition, very, very worthy ambition for him.
Alex?
This is how economics gets solved. If we want to live in an abundant future where the cost of service labor is driven to zero, step zero is creating benchmarks. So APEX and GDP val, I think, are beautiful examples. It's still early days, obviously, but beautiful examples of benchmarks for, call it knowledge work or knowledge work-based services in the economy. I would like to see many, many more benchmarks get created, including for robotic labor, manual labor.
Just within our portfolio, we have 28 seed stage companies doing AI just here in the building. And if I take any one of them, like, Mikado doing mechanical design, what's the benchmark for the quality of the design? Prim and Vocara doing voice sales and customer service, AI voices. What's the conversion rate and the customer satisfaction rate on an incrementally smarter AI? How do you benchmark that? Every one of these companies should be inventing a benchmark. Blitzy already is doing it for coding. But, whatever you're doing, if you don't create the benchmark, then it just turns to mud. There's no way for any, because it's like, how do you know if it's a smarter AI? I don't know.
And the challenge is we saturate them all, and we're comparing them all to human productivity. but we're going to need to have a whole brand new set of benchmarks that are, I don't know, are anchored in what, Alex?
Well, the good news is we already know how to benchmark superhuman performance. There are relative ELO-based benchmarks that we know how to do. We know how to, as a civilization, we know how to build systems that are more energetic than humans are, that are faster than humans are, and we're still able to measure them, even though they're superhuman along some dimensions. So we have no trouble measuring superhuman intelligence capabilities.
1,000 horsepower. All right.
Exactly.
Microsoft's not being let out of the game, so Microsoft unveils agent mode, and think of this as the ability for you to have access to it in all of your favorite Microsoft tools. Salim, do you want to jump in, or Dave?
I've been trying to get Microsoft Copilot to work in any kind of AI useful way, and it failed miserably for the last few months. I hope this one is a better effort.
I'm not going to make an enemy out of Microsoft, as powerful as they are, but I will say that adding AI as a feature to something that already exists, that's the wrong attitude. I feel like Apple and Microsoft are the worst offenders of this. It's not going to work.
So that's a great point, right? They're trying to maintain their customer base and scratch their AI itch versus AI native, clean sheet startups.
Well, and every corporate CEO should understand the same thing applies. I see so many people that are saying, yeah, we're doing AI. I added it as a feature in one department, and so now I don't have to think about it anymore. Let me go back and get back to my country club. And you're going to get crushed with that kind of perspective. It's not a feature. It's a brand new everything. It's a complete different greenfield opportunity.
There's a bunch of stuff I was trying to do in Excel, and I tried to use an AI mechanism to do it. I just couldn't do it. Finally, I ended up using Comet to do it in the browser, and it did it way better and way faster. So I think this is a huge gap. I don't know where they're going to go with this.
All right. Well, we've covered OpenAI and Anthropic. Let's not leave xAI out of the picture here. Elon has cut a deal with the government. xAI struck a deal with the US GSA to let federal agencies use Grok for 42 cents for 18 months. It was either 69 cents or 42 cents. I guess he went with the cheaper option, 42 cents. I'll leave that alone. Any particular comments on Grok entering DC?
Well, the price point is 42, which is 420, which is the magic number, which is the $20 million SEC fine that he had. Remember that? It's all, of course. It's always tongue in cheek with Elon, and I love that. Even at that scale, just making it fun and interesting, kind of like Taylor Swift. There's always a hidden message, and people love that stuff. And it's good. It keeps people engaged. But what's going on between corporate America and government America is completely unprecedented. A little scary. It's working really, really well, and it's helping the country a lot. But it's very odd to be cutting, investing in Intel and then cutting deals to move things. And it's for the government to be directly involved in corporate America like this has never happened before.
Well, it's looking a little bit like China, right? Where China is picking winners and forcing partnerships and creating, robot cities, gene engineering cities, AI cities, and such. It's fascinating, but
isn't the government signing deals with ChatGPT, et cetera, because we saw earlier. So it sounds like what they're doing is trying them all and seeing which one is the best over time.
Well, that would be fine. I mean, that's like government procurement, but that's not what's going on at all. You go into the White House and you're either genuflecting and being the anointed one, or you're not. And it's not. These are not arm's length procurement through the Air Force or something like that. These are White House edicts. Come in and talk. Yes.
Yeah. And we'll talk about Intel in the section called "This is not investment advice," which is coming up. All right. Meanwhile, in other AI news, here we go. Former Meta researcher is building a math whiz. I'm going to bring this to you, Alex. Teach us.
I haven't seen any indication thus far that math is not going to be solved in the next few months. How's that for a double negative?
Few months, okay. So again,
I think.
So this is
what is that?
Wait, hold on. So Alex, you've said that before, and everybody's asking me, please have Alex explain what it means to solve all math. So could you just take that
before we do that, let's just speak out this particular article.
Okay,
so
okay.
This is a woman. It's great to see female CEOs in the AI world. There are not enough of them. Karina Hong, she's the founder of Axiom Math. She's 24 years old, and she wants to build the ultimate AI mathematician. She's raised $64 million at a $300 million valuation. And again, we're seeing this over and over again. We're seeing, starting valuations in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know if it's at a pre-seed round or whatever, but intelligent individuals who have got a monomaniacal focus are getting incredible capital backing. Okay, now back to you, Alex. What does solved math really mean?
There are, I think, a few different ways one could operationalize what it means to solve math. One way would be to look at a benchmark like the Frontier Math Tier 4 benchmark, which measures the ability of AI to solve extremely difficult, but nonetheless pre-solved problems that would take human researchers several weeks to accomplish. If you just do a naive logistic extrapolation of progress in Frontier Math Tier 4, you find that by the law, again, of straight lines, as it were, that by the end of this year, by the end of 2025, we're starting to pass 10, 15% of problems in the benchmark that AI can solve. And at that point, I would argue, we're in a regime where algorithmically, we have clear line of sight to solving any math problem that we might have today. Just pour more compute on. So that would also, I think, point to the second operationalization I would have in mind when I speak of solving math. I don't mean literally every math problem that we can think of today has been solved. What I mean is that the process of mathematics has been solved to the extent that we have a clear line of sight where if you pour millions, billions, maybe trillions of dollars into OpEx in data centers, no new algorithmic advances are needed. We can reasonably forecast that any mathematical problem that's solvable will be solved with the same algorithms, just with a lot more compute.
Okay, now take me to the implications of that for the general public.
Tricky. It's tricky. Probably, I would. This is in the territory of speculation, but I think one of the more obvious downstream consequences of solving math is that any problem that depends on the difficulty of math, or let's say math being difficult, that isn't protected in a formal sense by the so-called complexity hierarchy. Mathematicians and computer scientists have this notion of certain problems being provably harder in some sense than others. Maybe you've heard of P versus NP. But if there's no formal protection for certain classes of problems being provably harder than other classes, I think certain types of tasks that we encounter in the everyday economy, for example, maybe hypothetically certain hash functions that cryptocurrencies depend on, or other everyday economic functions depend on, are at risk of volatility. If suddenly, for example, again, speculatively, not investment advice, if there were a super AI mathematician tomorrow that could, say, invert the AES cipher suite or invert the hash functions underneath AES, that could be potentially extremely disruptive to the economy, cause a lot of volatility.
I think the point you're making is if AI cracks advanced math, it just isn't. It's not just solving equations; it's creating the scaffolding to solve all these other areas like cryptography, economics, physics, etc. That's what you're really saying.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I would say the way I would frame it perhaps is first-order consequences, problems that depend on math being hard, experience some volatility. Second-order consequences, I think it's the ultimate canary for any domain that requires the ability to do mathematical reasoning. So I would expect in short order a variety of math-oriented science and engineering and medicine and other domains are going to fall in rapid succession. If this theory of the future ends up being correct, I was alluding a few minutes ago to timelines being short, we may find ourselves in a world 2 to 3 years from now where we're just drowning under math, science, engineering being solved in rapid succession.
Drowning under serial and sort of Cambrian explosion of breakthroughs.
Exactly. That will also parenthetically be potentially quite difficult for society to metabolize.
Yeah, the economic impacts of that are going to be unbelievable.
This episode is brought to you by Blitzy, autonomous software development with infinite code context. Blitzy uses thousands of specialized AI agents that think for hours to understand enterprise-scale code bases with millions of lines of code. Engineers start every development sprint with the Blitzy platform, bringing in their development requirements. The Blitzy platform provides a plan, then generates and precompiles code for each task. Blitzy delivers 80% or more of the development work autonomously, while providing a guide for the final 20% of human development work required to complete the sprint. Enterprises are achieving a 5x engineering velocity increase when incorporating Blitzy as their pre-IDE development tool, pairing it with their coding copilot of choice to bring an AI-native SDLC into their org. Ready to 5x your engineering velocity? Visit Blitzy.com to schedule a demo and start building with Blitzy today.
All right. Speaking about economics, so AI can now pass the hardest level of a CFA exam in minutes. So let's take a quick look at this. So CFA is a chartered financial analyst, and it deals with investment management, portfolio management, financial analysis, and ethics in finance, which I find absolutely fascinating. And I looked it up. The CFA level 3 part of the exam is about portfolio management and wealth planning. So
I want to make a comment on this one.
Yeah.
So we're advising one of the big 4 accounting firms on how to think about transformation. And this one, we've been predicting this with them to be happening because this requires real world reasoning. And the fact that it is doing this is a huge implication. All their finance jobs essentially get rewritten now and recreated. It's a body blow to the accounting world.
Well, what I find interesting is, leveling the playing field across all investments. Do I, with access to a specific AI, have access to the best investment advice that, Warren Buffett has access to as well? Is this a leveling the playing field across all economics?
I think it is, but I what I'm excited about is, America lost, and in Europe too, lost almost all of its manufacturing. Despite inventing the car, inventing the plane, inventing the microchip, inventing the computer, all the manufacturing of that stuff moved to other countries.
Yeah, we gave it up.
We gave it up, and but our economy kept growing. What are we all doing? Well, we're a service economy. We're doing services. What the hell does that mean? Well, you look under the covers, and a huge fraction of very smart people are working in this totally circular, nonsensical world where we created a complex law, complex taxes, complex accounting, and then this other huge group of people need to solve the complex accounting, and it produces absolutely nothing useful for humanity.
Oh my God!
In this huge IRS
code. I mean,
yes.
For God's sakes.
Holy crap! Yeah, Ronald Reagan was the last guy to say this is insane. We got to get this down by 10x. And ever since, everyone bloats it up. The accounting lobby is the biggest lobby in the country, and it's bigger and bigger.
Lawyers and accountants.
Lawyers and accountants. We finally have an opportunity here to get rid of it once and for all, not by eliminating it, but by having the AI automate both sides.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes something we don't have to do anymore. And all that talent can create things that actually benefit humanity. I'm so excited for that.
I would also...
The relief is so palpable in your voice there, Dave. It's incredible.
Peter, to your question, I was also encouraged the thought experiment. If everyone has the best investment advice thanks to super intelligent investment advisors, what does the economy look like? And what is the rational act? What's the rational course of action for an investor if everyone has equally super intelligent investment advice?
It goes to your point, Alex, is buying the index.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Damn it. He's right again.
I'm going to fight on that one, but we'll get to it.
I thought I'd bring quantum into the conversation. I know, Dave, you and Alex have been working on this. A couple of years back, I started a SPAC with Shervin Pishavar, and we took D-Wave public, which is now seeing incredible resurgence. It's gone from like 69 cents a share up to $30 a share, and done extremely well. We've seen Rigetti Computing. Chad Righetti's been a friend for some time. D-Wave. So all of these independent, quantum computing companies are getting some real traction. Here's a quote, though, from Julian Kelly, that Google Quantum's AI director. The technology is 5 years out from a real breakthrough. Alex, you've been tracking this. What are your thoughts on quantum computing?
I think it's early. I'm reminded that the GPU, or call it the accelerated compute market via the avatar of NVIDIA, had to pivot several times before it took over the economy. It started with PC gaming and then pivoted for a bit to crypto and now AI, and maybe there's a post-AI act. But I think what is missing right now, at least to my knowledge, is the killer app for quantum accelerated compute. There's a school of thought out there that maybe we'll use quantum at inference time to generate large synthetic data sets of quantum chemistry data, say, that will be used as training data for classical AI. It's difficult for me to buy that that's going to be an enormous market. My best guess is that to the extent that there will be a killer app for quantum compute, it's probably something like AI accelerated generalist training for AI or inference for AI. And at least, again, to my knowledge, no one has yet published the killer app for quantum ML. There are lots of proposals out there. Nothing has seemed to scale yet.
This year at the Abundance Summit, I'm going to have Jack Hidary back on stage speaking about Sandbox AQ. It's interesting. This is the spin out of Google X. Eric Schmidt is the chairman of the company, and they booted up at a $500 million valuation and have had, I think, in excess of $100 million of revenue. And they're not a quantum computer-based company. They're an AI company using the quantum equations to provide different products and services. So they're basically looking at new navigation systems that's able to measure slight perturbations in the Earth's magnetic fields. When GPS is down, you can still navigate because magnetic fields are not being spoofed like GPS is being spoofed in the Middle East. You're using it for different biomedical, looking at your heart's electromagnetic system, if you would. They're using it for encryption methodologies, but it's a real revenue engine there. One of the things that we should speak to for a moment, because we do have a lot of crypto listeners as well, is everybody's like, oh my God, when is quantum going to break the encryption codes that's going to destroy Bitcoin? And it's just important for everybody to know that if, in fact, we have quantum computation breaking encryption, your keys to your Bitcoin wallet are the last thing to worry about, because the same encryption codes being broken are the nuclear codes, the banking system, and everything that runs the financial systems around the world.
I would actually take the position that post-quantum crypto is nearing a state, maybe not evenly distributed yet, but at least in theory of approaching quasi-maturity. If I lost sleep at night worrying about inversion attacks against widely used crypto systems, it's not quantum information processing I'd be worried about. It's AI solving math. I think that's a far more insidious threat to crypto security in general than quantum. We know how to do post-quantum crypto.
But the same thing then, right? AI solving math, if it's breaking encryption, it's breaking encryption across a multitude of other much more concerning financial and defense areas. Yes?
Well, as a practical matter, this is imminent either way. It's not going to affect nuclear codes or Bitcoin. What it will affect, though, is anything that you've encrypted and left around. Using AES 256 or 128, that's already vulnerable within a year, if not today. So it's all the designs, files, and stuff that you thought you encrypted and you left on a server or left in your desk. all that is going to be wide open. So just so you're aware.
I think, Dave, that's a really important point. It's the stuff in the past. It's not really the stuff that's current or in the future, because we'll come up with quantum encryption capabilities, etc. There's one thing about this story that popped out at me that I would just want to flag, which is that in 2008, we heard a quantum computing expert saying we're 5 years out from having a real breakout. So this has been a constant pattern for a while. I think with the AI changes, this may actually really be the case that we're 5 years out. It may be much less than that, given what the potential of AI to solve a lot of these problems. But
I think that's great advice, Salim. Well, no, I've heard this. Yeah, it's great advice. And as a general pattern, when somebody tells you, hey, blah, blah, blah is going to happen, invest in it, it's 5 years out, 9 times out of 10, it's 20 or 30 years out.
Fusion has been 5 years out since the 50s.
Well, it's been 50 years out since the 50s. Let's be clear about that. Not 5 years out.
Well, and the opposite is true too. When somebody tells you something's imminent, like this is happening right now, guys, don't ignore it. It's very likely that that's also like you're almost late to the party. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to chips and data centers. A lot happening here. I'll start with an open letter that Sam Altman put out on abundant intelligence. I'll just quote from it. It says, with 10 gigawatts of compute, AI can cure cancer or provide customized tutoring to every student on Earth. If we're limited by compute, we'll have to choose which one to prioritize. No one wants to make the choice. We want to create a factory that produces a gigawatt of new AI infrastructure every week. So this is basically Sam saying, give us all the compute and capital so we don't have to choose between education and solving cancer or longevity. It's an important point. I don't know. Any thoughts on this one, Dave?
Oh, yeah, lots. I mean, it's amazing how it's becoming increasingly clear that Sam is very small compared to Zuck and Google, I guess, Sundar.
Small in what way?
Well, I mean, he signed $100 billion and a $300 billion deal. And that made big news, but he doesn't have anywhere near $100 billion or $300 billion. He's like 1/10 that at most. Meanwhile, Mark Zuckerberg said, "Yeah, we're going to put $600 billion into this over the next few years." But he has it. He has the cash and the credit to actually, and he will really do it. So Sam is up against some serious heavy hitters.
And Google's got massive engines. I mean, they've got so much capital in the bank that they can expend here. And Elon Elon moves his pinky, and capital flows into XAI at whatever he needs.
But what I love about that dynamic is that Sam is the one guy driving the vision and driving the agenda. Everybody else can afford to just kind of be an afterthink or a soft sell and without Sam out there opening everyone's eyes, nobody else, like Google would have never even rolled it out, I don't think, without Sam putting the pressure on. So here, I think he's exactly right. Like, is it on this slide or is it coming up? I think it's coming up. Yeah, I'll wait for it. Yeah, here we go.
This article here is OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank expand Stargate with 5 new AI data centers. So aiming to hit $500 billion or 10 gigawatt goal before the end of 2025 and being ahead of schedule. Tiling the Earth. Dave, continue.
Tiling the Earth. Yeah. Well, so Sam is saying, look, we're going to try and organize around 10 incremental gigawatts per year in perpetuity or accelerating. And that will just barely keep up with the use cases and the demand. And so that's really, really cool to hear someone articulate, because then, the land, the governors, the plumbing, all of that stuff can start to get rallied around a long-term view of what it means to stay ahead in this race. And so I think it's great to articulate it. Because the numbers are so big, no one else will say it. Sam is the one guy that'll actually say it. But let's put
the numbers out there here. So Stargate's $500 billion investment dwarfs all the other hyperscalers in 2024. Microsoft put in $40 billion into AI data centers in 24, planned $80 billion for this year. Amazon with $16 billion, Google, Alphabet, $29 billion, and Meta, $23 billion. I think they're all going to be massively accelerating, but just to give some numbers for folks to compare this to.
I do think, for what it's worth, we are tiling already the Earth quite literally. But there's also a certain sense in which I expect, if you remember President Reagan's nuclear policy of building up to build down, I can imagine high likelihood scenarios where efficiency advances, maybe ontological shocks, perhaps ontological shocks that result from these data centers, make the naive assumption that we're going to scale in extremis to Dyson swarms, which is, of course, you just project outward after we're done tiling the Earth, tile the solar system, make that look a little bit silly. But I think in the short term, all systems go, at least for the next 5 to 10 years.
I mean, I have to imagine that one of the first areas where AI is going to cause a massive disruption is energy efficiency and compute efficiencies on these centers.
Yes, and this is a regime right now where we were talking about quantum a few minutes ago. Maybe there's photonics as an intermediate substrate before, if at all, we migrate to fully quantum systems. There's, as Feynman said, there's so much room at the bottom. There are so many new low-level in the infra stack advances that are just waiting to become economically palatable. There are scenarios where we don't need to fully tile the Earth, and the data centers solve a whole bunch of low-level physical problems for us, enabling us to keep this relatively contamed.
And if you remember
if you go back to our sorry, you're going to say the exact same thing.
I was going to say the same thing. Remember, Brockman said we want a GPU per human.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
so
and then
GPUs.
As soon as you have it, you'll want more.
Yeah.
If you go to our podcast from a couple months ago, we had a whole section on the software breakthroughs. To Alex's comment of the opportunity at the bottom, minimum 10x, more like 10,000x is the best guess, but somewhere between 10 and 10,000x just software improvement that's coming. But we'll use all of it and want more. There's no doubt in my mind. And then, there's hardware on top of that as well. But we did a whole analysis of the different dimensions and how they're multiplicative. We should revisit that because we have a lot more color now.
Yeah, but I think to Sam Altman's earlier point about choosing between health and education, there will be a fundamental breakthrough. There just needs to be, because we can't expect that the systems that we had, from a couple of years ago are going to perpetuate going forward. So I think we'll have the compute to do all these things. This is fascinating. This is an article saying NVIDIA discussing new business model, chip leasing. OpenAI struck a $100 billion deal to lease, not buy NVIDIA's AI chips, spread over 5 years. I can just imagine the conversation between Jensen and Sam. Hey, listen, Jensen, I want those chips. I just don't have $100 billion. Well, Sam, what if I just lease them to you over 5 years? Are you good for the payments over 5 years? Because I think, our investors love to have guaranteed revenues over 5 years. And who takes a depreciation risk, right? Dave, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. Actually, a bunch of our MIT best buddies, including Kush Bavaria here, are starting new companies around this entire area of creating new securities that allow you to finance all this stuff. The hyperscalers are just going ballistic. I mean, this is so much bigger than all other forms of real estate investment combined, is the aggregation of data centers and chips. So the leasing was inevitable because, again, Sam doesn't have cash on the barrelhead. Meanwhile, Jensen, he's got the lead right now, and he has a $4.5 trillion market cap. One way to lock that in is to use the leverage. And this is why Larry Ellison's the richest guy in the world, or was a week or two ago, because he used his balance sheet and his borrowing ability at 4% to finance a lot of bottlenecks that, the startups can't afford it. And Sam obviously can't afford it. Who's going to fund it? Well, just because you're leasing it, somebody still has to buy the chip up front. So NVIDIA is saying, okay, well, we'll fund the purchase of our own chips using our massive balance sheet and our massive market cap.
I agree with you. This felt inevitable to me. It was going to happen at some point.
Yeah. I think it's easy for skeptics to paint this as smacking of financial engineering and some sort of GPU credit bubble. I think I think the GPU credit bubble, though, the story, in addition, as folks here already mentioned, depreciation. The other, I think, storyline that's being missed is right now, NVIDIA is in a very high margin GPU hardware business, and there's an impedance mismatch between selling high margin GPUs and low to negative margin neo cloud and cloud businesses. And so leasing is the market, I perceive the market contorting itself to accommodate that mismatch between high margin GPU hardware, low to negative NeoCloud?
Well, Rob Fisher, who used to run Link Studio here, went off to build data centers, and he said he's signing deals 2, 3, 4 a week now.
Wow.
So I think what's happened is, the visionaries started building data centers ahead of the curve, knowing the demand would come, and everybody's a little nervous about that. Well, the demand, at least as far as Rob is concerned, the demand is here now. And you can see it in all the use cases we demoed earlier in the pod. Those things didn't exist 6 months ago. Now, anyone seeing those is going to want to do it immediately, whether it's in a corporate or it's personal or, just a theme song for the podcast. Everyone's like, wow, that's really usable. Where do I get it? Well, it has to run on a data center somewhere. It's not magic. And so I think the demand is starting to catch up to the construction, and the demand will get way ahead of the construction.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen anything yet in terms of demand. I mean, everybody's still just barely tickling, ChatGPT and not really plugging in. I mean, once we are spinning up agents and we're building new capabilities and transforming our lives, I mean, we're going to see 1,000x per individual. All right. I call this segment Not Investment Advice. Okay, let's jump in.
Great title. Then don't you have to say it? It's in the title.
So I'm going to continue on our Intel saga. Dave, congratulations on your options. I finally bought in. Probably a generation of Intel options later than you did. But here's a chart. This is a quote from Chamath, who says, President Trump got Intel to give Team America 10% of itself at $0. He has a better IRR than Buffett. Well, of course, if you get something for $0, you have an infinite IRR. But here we go. We see President Trump makes 80% on Intel purchase in 6 weeks. Not bad. I mean, this was predictable, right? Intel, the U.S. cannot afford to let Intel fail.
Yeah, we did a podcast that was exactly concurrent with Lip-Bu being at the White House.
Yep.
And so that was August 11th. I think it came out the next day. And we said, okay, Lip-Bu will come out of the White House. It'll either be black smoke or white smoke, depending on how that meeting goes. But what you're looking for is either Lip-Bu to quietly disappear, in a good way, not quietly disappear, or Donald Trump to reverse course. Remember, he tweeted, Lip-Bu must go. He's completely conflicted. He's invested in China.
Yes, remember that.
So Donald will either reverse course. It depends on whether Lip-Bu says, look, I'm as American as apple pie, and I will build the best fabs in the world right here on our soil, or he says something else. Well, so it came out, white smoke. And that means Donald is going to make this succeed one way or another. And then, so the rest is kind of, the slides imply that Intel is way up this year, but it was August 11th. That was the date that it was at its low for the year or near low for the year. So this has only been, 6 weeks, like it says here on the slide.
It's crazy. This is sovereign venture capital, right? This is the government basically driving investor confidence and triggering momentum. I'm a libertarian capitalist. I don't know how to think about this, but I do believe that Intel is a critical asset for America, and it needs to be partnered up, supported. And along those lines, we've got this other piece of news that Intel stock extends its gain, hoping for AMD to go from rival to partner. And the two big deals that are out there for Intel are a partnership with AMD and Apple and NVIDIA. So, this is, again, going to Chamath's terms, not mine, Team America here.
I think, Peter, there's a certain sense in which this was almost predetermined. By this, I mean, call it the quasi-nationalization of Intel. I remember conversations I had with Intel engineers 20 plus years ago, and they knew, as continued to be the case, everyone knows Moore's first law, that number of transistors or transistor density doubles every 18 or 24 months, depending on which version of the law you like. Not as many folks perhaps pay attention to Moore's second law, which is the cost of a fab doubles approximately every 4 years. So 20 plus years ago, you could imagine just extrapolating Moore's second law out and realizing at some point new fabs become so expensive that really only sovereign nation states would be in a position to finance it. And this was reasonably well known within the semi community 20 plus years ago, that at some point, as Moore's first law is starting to end and Moore's second law is starting to become so expensive that only sovereign interests can afford to finance this, something like this, in some sense, I think was bound to happen eventually.
Bound to happen. Yeah, exactly right. And I'll tell you, a lot of people don't talk about this, but a few years ago, we outsourced all of our PC board, the green boards inside of your laptop, outsourced all of that to China for cheap manufacturing for years, for decades. And lo and behold, there were little spy chips that were, about the size, very small, like a rice grain sized thing, stuck between the layers of the PC boards. And that made it into all the US data centers. And so that was grabbing all the passwords and transmitting them back to China.
Wow.
And so the US government discovered this. It had been going on for years. And then rather than make a big international incident out of it, they said, holy crap, this is going to be devastating. We're going to lose confidence in all financial instruments and everything. We're going to squelch this story. And it kind of disappeared from the news. And they've been quietly for a long time trying to clean it all up. And so now the idea that you would trust your highest end chip manufacturing to be done offshore and repeat that same mistake, non-starter. There's just no way that's the right choice, because these chips go right into all of our weapons. They go right into the tanks, right into the planes. I mean, these are like, if there's spyware embedded in the microcode, it's the biggest disaster you could possibly imagine. So there's no way that they were.
I start thinking, Dave, of what else falls into the we cannot let it fail category. And my mind turns to energy. I think that we'll talk about that in the next segment here, but the US government needing to prop up form consolidation, reduce regulatory, and really accelerate our energy economy. So, but I'll be keeping an eye out for this Aschenbrenner-like moment of finding a company that is, I don't say too big to fail, I would say too centrally critical to fail.
Too scarce to fail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't talk about scarcity. All right, let's move on here. Speaking about scarcity, so Jensen goes on record with, I think, something very important: electrician and plumbers needed in the new working world. So last podcast, we talked about how universities are failing. The perceived value of a college degree has fallen through the floor. At the same time, the category of workers who are out of jobs the longest are the new college graduates. It's an insane. So how does higher education continue to charge what they charge in this scenario? So here are the numbers. It's estimated that hundreds of thousands of electricians, plumbers, and carpenters are needed. The U.S. is short 500,000 construction workers in 2025. And rather than coming out of school, $100,000, $200,000 in debt, why don't you come out with a job that's paying $100,000 to $200,000 and where you're needed instantly?
Yeah, and it's not just construction; it's construction automation too. This is why I can't wait to go to Abilene to meet with Chase Lockmiller, because you're like, why would an MIT Aeroastro guy be the right guy to be running Stargate in Abilene? Well, because he looks at every one of these jobs and he thinks, how can I build a robot for that? How can I automate that? How can I restructure it so it's modular? And so I think that's going to be the other side of this. It's not just jobs in raw wiring and plumbing. It's jobs in management and construction automation. So some very, very high-end jobs, massive opportunity for employment. And I really wish some more states would recognize that if you want your population in your state to be well off, you got to get the data centers up and running in your state.
Yeah. So here's another stat. Gen Z is choosing trades over college, 16% rise in trade programs since 2023. And construction is the fastest growing industry for new college grads in 2025. Find that absolutely fascinating. All right. I added these slides. I'm calling it an exponential reality check. So a couple of days ago, one of my boys wants to build a computer. So we're going to build a gaming computer. And we're going through and researching, the GPUs, the CPUs, the memory, and so forth. And we're going on ordering them. Turns out, you can order everything you need, every component on Amazon. So I'm on Amazon and I'm buying, this DDR5 RAM kit, 32 gigabytes of RAM for $101. And the back of my mind, I'm like, I wonder what that would have cost in the 80s when I was building my first computer. And then we go on and I'm ordering 4 terabyte internal hard drive for $84, 4 terabytes for $84. And I'm going, holy shit, that's crazy. So I hopped on GPT, on ChatGPT and said, okay, give me an estimate of what this would have cost in the mid 80s. So here are the numbers. They're pretty staggering. So instead of $100 for 32 gigabytes of RAM, it was $150 million back in the 80s. And a 4 terabyte hard drive that did not exist would have cost you about $1.26 billion to cobble together. I mean, I was just in awe of this.
If the top speed of a car had increased at the same pace as these curves, we'd have cars that went faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
You know what I find incredibly
sense
fascinating, is that we finally have an answer to something that's vexed all of the AI and psychology community for decades, which is, what would it take to create human level thinking outside of a human brain? And it turns out it takes, about 8 to 16 GPUs of capacity, and those are about $30,000 each, but you can store the human brain storage fits on 2 of these. So it's about, $160 of storage to everything that can fit into a human brain. And then actually then a lot more. So we have massive overabundance of storage.
Yeah.
But compute is still, processing is still, the human brain is doing really, really well on 20 watts.
So Alex, the best I can figure is we're going to go to like molecular memory that will effectively be free in a couple of decades.
We can do better than that. We
go
can do
better than
atomic
free?
memory,
Okay.
but we can do better than molecular memory.
Okay.
We can also do better than free, but we could do atomic-based memory. We could do. There are proposals for picometer level memory, albeit at faster timescales. We could do femto scale computing and storage. We could go sub-femto scale. There are the physics of our universe goes so many orders of magnitude down to Planck, and even whether Planck is physical is still an open research question. We're not going to run out of degrees of freedom to store cat images or whatever else it is that we're trying to use storage for. There's lots of room at the bottom.
I always found it fascinating when I was doing my physics degree that no matter how big you want to go in the universe or how small, you have infinity essentially in either direction.
I do think, for what it's worth, there are scenarios where we start to run up against fundamental physics limitations, but we're still many orders of magnitude away at the moment.
Not something to worry about tonight on your drive home, folks.
Wait a few years.
I added this as a segment we might want to have in future episodes as well, which is sort of exponential book recommendations. We've been talking about Accelerando. A few of our subscribers and listeners have reached out about that book. I thought it would take a moment to just chat about it. And then one of my favorite books by a dear friend who's on stage with me and Salim, often at the Abundance Summit, Ramez Nam. He wrote a trilogy called Nexus. So Alex, tell us about Accelerando a moment. Again, this is sort of, if you want some fun reading between episodes of WTF, here's a couple of books for you.
Sure. Love the book corner concept. So I would say Accelerando is my favorite book ever. It tells the story of a multi-generational family starting before the singularity, passes through the singularity, goes after the singularity. And it is probably, in my mind, the single best fiction or nonfiction, it's fiction in this case, depiction of what the 21st century is likely to look like, and has so many important concepts ranging from, obviously, AI, nanotech, space development, first contact, that are difficult to synthesize or at least have apparently proven for other authors difficult to synthesize. And I think it just reading Accelerando, which I first encountered in grad school, has made me such a sci-fi snob that it's difficult. It's difficult to. I judge every other bit of science fiction by by the standard. I had the opportunity to create a poster-sized version of Accelerando, which is available as a Creative Commons licensed ebook presented to Charlie, which was a real pleasure. But I would encourage every sci-fi writer out there, hold yourself to the standard of Accelerando, both in terms of optimism and in terms of physical realism. There's always the temptation, if you're a sci-fi author, to just take one dimension of the world and extrapolate it narrowly, and that ends up creating, I think, highly unrealistic scenarios. Accelerando does a much better job.
He does. He fails me on his extrapolation on space and space technologies. But I'm not going to be. It's an amazing book. I'm reading it, actually listening to it for the second time. It's got a great Audible as well. Nexus by Ramez Nam came out in 2012. It's 13 years old, but it holds incredibly good. So it reads as fresh today as it did back in 2012. And it's a story of a guy named Caden Lane. He's a young scientist who develops something called Nexus. It's a nanotechnology, basically like Neuralace, that links human brains directly to the cloud and links them to other brains. It gives birth to a collective consciousness and allows you to run software apps on your brain. And it also goes deep into bioengineering. It's a look at where we're going to get to on the flip side of what Ray Kurzweil predicts in the mid-2030s as high bandwidth brain-computer interface. An amazing book, an amazing trilogy, one of my favorites. I've read it 3 times now, the last time with my 14-year-old son. So Salim and Dave, any favorite books for you?
Foundation series from Asimov is a classic. That's just a must-read for everybody.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, I only read what Alex tells me to read, and because his recommendations have been 100% perfect. So I don't want to trump his great advice. But I will say that the terminology in the books alone makes it worth the investment. The stories are great too, but if you read the books, then you get the terminology, then you can keep up with what he's saying. And I think that's really, really important. It's a great investment to make.
Alex, would you come up with another recommendation? I'll do the same for next time.
Absolutely. So my second and third favorite.
No, hold it for then. Hold it for next time.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. All right. Got to keep our subscribers coming back. All right. Let's jump into energy and robotics. So OpenAI is planning a 125-fold energy capacity increase over the next 8 years. This is more than India itself is putting out. 250 gigawatts of energy by 2033. Where are they today? At roughly, heading towards 2 gigawatts. Thoughts, gentlemen?
If you do the arithmetic on this, if my arithmetic is correct, 250 gigawatts, obviously this represents a tremendous expansion over where we are now on the one hand. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, it only corresponds to approximately a 20% of the insolation, the inbound insolation on Earth's surface that could be captured or recovered with solar photovoltaics. So we're still, even with 250 gigawatts for one frontier lab, we're still pretty far from Kardashev level 1, let alone Dyson swarms. I think I would like to see terawatts, tens, hundreds of terawatts.
And we'll get to solar in just a moment. I found this fascinating. So the U.S. is planning to use emergency powers to save more coal plants. So the Energy Department kept Michigan and Pennsylvania oil and coal plant running past retirement. Reason? They want grid reliability and they don't want to risk the demands. We've seen the consumer price index for energy starting to spike and definitive need for more energy. So there's 100 coal plants that are set to retire in 2028. And of course, this White House in particular has been pro-energy of any and all types. Let me hop into solar, and then we can circle back to this conversation if that's okay with you guys.
Sure.
All right. So I found this chart fascinating. So Ember, which put it out, is an independent energy and climate think tank in the UK. And you can see this is a chart that plots energy from 2000 to 2025 across solar, coal, natural gas, hydro, nuclear, oil, and bioenergy. And it makes the point that over the last 15 years, between 2010 and 2025, global solar capacity went from the lowest of 40 gigawatts to today the highest at almost 3 terawatts of energy. So, Salim, take us away here.
Well, there's a really important piece to point out. We do this in all of our presentations where we point out how hard it is to spot this and how badly cognitively our brains are at seeing this curve, right? And you guys had talked about Chris Wright and his comment that you in 50 years will see solar still below 10%, which kind of blows my mind. If we can flip to the next slide. Right. I want to give a couple of examples here because this is so important.
So read this one out for those who are listening.
So this is an exponential graph with Vinod Khosla on it. And what he did was he went back. We saw exponential growth of mobile phones through the decade of 2000 to 2010, doubling every 2 years. Okay. He went back and he had a research analyst go and look at what did all the industry expert analysts say would be the growth of mobile phones. And in 2002, they predicted 16% growth year on year. Okay, 2 years later, gone up 100%. And the 2004 prediction was not 18 or 20 or 25%. It went down. It went down to 14% growth.
Predicted.
Why? Because they thought they would be 14% growth because they thought it would level off. Okay, we just had 100% growth over 2 years. It's got to level off now. In 2006, they predicted 12% growth. It went up another 100% in reality. And between 2006 to 2008, it went up another 100%, and they predicted 10% growth. Okay. Then it went up another 100%. I mean, how much more wrong can you be from 10% prediction when the actual reality is 100%? So this is the mobile phone predictions of all the top analysts, by the way, Gartner's, all these guys, okay? So this is kind of critical. But this slide, I think, is killer. And if you were driving, pull over and park and just look at this for a second, what you see in the black is the actual growth of solar energy over a 15, 20-year period. Okay, what you see in the colored lines are the curve, by the way, is a total hockey stick up and to the right, an exponential of epic levels. Okay, just going vertical. What you see in the colored lines, which are all horizontal, are the predictions year after year from the top energy experts in the world as to the future of solar. And what you see is every time solar goes literally vertical, all the experts go linear.
They basically say it can't continue scaling like it's been.
It's got to just level off.
It's got to level off.
Right? Yeah. And this goes from 2012 to 2017, 2018. Okay, now the 2018 graph was even worse. It actually showed it going down. The cost is dropping 50% every 18 months. How do you predict that it's going to go down? This kind of drives me nuts because this is not a math error. This is a cognitive error. And these, by the way, let me just point out again, these are not lay people. These are the top energy experts in the world getting it 180 degrees wrong. Right? Literally, if I made predictions like this year after year, I should literally lose my job if I'm that far different from reality. And this is the problem we have because our governments are listening to these experts.
It depends who employed them. If it was the
it really is kind of unbelievable that there's a whole other one about electric cars that I won't get into. They predicted that we would not have more than 1 million electric cars by 2040. And we crossed it in 2014, and even then they didn't update their things. I'm going to give one more here. So what this is a graph of solar modules dropping and then leveling off for a bit and then dropping again like a stone. And in 2003, the leading energy expert in the world in solar energy itself made a comment. And he said, look, if you add up the cost of the silver and the glass and the wiring, the physical component cost of a solar module, you'll never get below $1 a watt. That's the limit. That's the actual limit. Now, the market actually believes them for a while, and it flattens out for a few years. Then it starts dropping. By 2014, it's 50 cents a watt. Now, it actually goes off the bottom of the graph. Where we are today would be where my feet are sitting on this chair when the graph is this big. We're down to about 2 cents a watt, or close to a penny a watt. And his comment when he was showing this was, okay, getting below $1 exceeded my expectations. That was his comment after being this. So it's really, really hard. And I want to give a final example that we don't have a slide for, just to be fair to these folks as how hard it is. So over the last 20 years, if you own a car wash in Buenos Aires in Argentina, your revenues as a car wash owner have dropped by 50%. Okay. Now, one of our community members, Santiago Bilincas, who I think, Peter, you know well, lives there and says this makes no sense. The middle class has exploded. We have a ton more Mercedes and BMWs running around. Argentinians are very proud. They like to keep their cars clean. There should be a doubling or tripling of revenues. Why is there a 50% drop? Is there water restrictions? Are there hyper competition? Are there legal issues or something? He starts looking into it, and over a couple of months gets rid of all of the obvious factors. Then he finds the answer, which literally turns out to be Moore's law, because our computational ability over that 20 years has increased quite a bit. Our ability to model the weather has gotten a lot better. And over that 20-year period, we're exactly 50% better at knowing when it's going to rain. And when you know it's going to rain, you don't wash your car, right? And the reason this is important is you can be the smartest car wash owner in the world and you will never see that coming. Right? And we call this in the book the orthogonal effect of innovation, where a breakthrough in one domain affects you radically and you don't see it. You can't see it, right? And so it's so critical to keep track not just of the demand side, but the supply side of things. Right? The most famous in all these, and I'll end my rant here, is in the 1980s, McKinsey's advised AT&T on the future of mobile phones, and they predicted by the year 2000 there will not be more than 1 million mobile phones in the world. And AT&T left the business. They actually said that market doesn't work. By the year 2000, we had 100 million mobile phones, so they're off by 99% in one of those. In one of our executive programs at Singularity, Peter, this guy puts up his hand when I mentioned this, says, I co-authored that report. Right? I'm like, oh my God, is he going to rebut this, whatever? He goes, no, you're absolutely right. The reason we got it wrong was when you had these big handsets with these briefcase batteries, we figured there's no way you're going to sell more than 1 million of those. We didn't see was that within a couple of years, that had shrunk to a clamshell. And that you could actually sell a ton of. And so that's the part that people miss. So when you track these, be really, really careful of making these outlandish predictions like it'll never get below this or never get above that. We've seen repeatedly.
I don't know why you want to end that rant. That was the coolest thing ever.
It's just, I'll tell you. For years, we've been struggling with this, talking to governments, and they're like, yeah, this will never happen. That'll never happen. And we go berserk. Yeah. Sorry,
God, I love those slides. I love those slides. And you know what else? When Bill Gross was on the pod, he said, all the land where pumped hydro has already been bought. I did a little research, and actually, not true. Lots of land where pumped hydro makes a ton of sense, but it's not quite as sunny, has not yet been bought, if anyone's listening. And because the solar panels are getting so cheap, you can just put more of them there. And so heads up, there's a theme. If the governor of New Hampshire is listening, please give me a call. But there's lots of opportunity that hasn't been tapped in real estate.
I have 2 more quick energy factoids.
Okay.
One, I did a little bit of research, and I was talking to one of our energy gurus in our ecosystem. It turns out if you add up all the dams in the U.S., there's 10 gigawatts of potential hydroelectric power that's not been tapped. So we could convert all those dams. That's a big number.
Sorry, I'm really going off here, but I remember we were on the pod and we said, holy shit, the Hoover Dam right now is operating at about 5 to 10% capacity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because it hasn't rained.
Yeah.
So we're like, why the hell are we not doing pumped hydro to just pump the water from the bottom to the top? Tons of sunshine right there. Turned out somebody had already put together an entire investment thesis around it, but it was exactly the right idea. But that theme isn't over. That is still very hot.
I think the point we started this whole conversation is China is running away with solar deployment, and I don't understand why we don't see it here in the U.S. I'm a pilot. I fly out of Santa Monica Airport. I fly over L.A., and all I see is naked roofs that could all be producing electricity. There's a few solar thermal farms out in the middle of the desert, but there's so much potential. So much potential. All right.
It's geopolitical. It's geopolitical because China has pretty much a lock on the supply chain and the panels.
Well, I'd be investing in building out solar capacity manufacturing here, right?
Yes, we should.
Solar cities.
What I would look to do is say, what's the 10x to 100x breakthrough on photonics or solar past the next level, and go after that.
And Alex, digital superintelligence will give us new material sciences, will give us new capabilities for that. So there will
That's why Alex is standing there not looking worried at all. He's like, what are these guys are?
I think there are many ways to generate useful energy. I think fission in the form of SMRs, fusion potentially as soon as we've discussed in the past, 2028 to 2030. I think there are so many non-solar, novel-ish forms of energy that are on the verge of coming online. I'm not losing sleep over geopolitical imbalances over solar photovoltaics.
All right, let's jump into robotics here. This is a fascinating tweet turned into an article here. China's robotic boom is going global. So if you look at the first half of 2025 and the companies or the countries around the world that are purchasing robots from China, Poland is up 1,700%, Mexico 275%, Russia 135%, Vietnam 114%, as opposed to South Korea, Germany, and USA, which is -3 to US at 58%. The point here is the countries that are blank sheet, are not don't have a robotics industry, are buying from China. So countries are starting their automation journey and buying from China. So this is something that the U.S. needs to be looking at. Basically, China is staking its flag in countries around the world by deploying both AI and robotics in a very cost-effective fashion. Thoughts, gentlemen?
I wouldn't be surprised, given how central robotics in general purpose robotics, more particularly human general purpose or humanoid general purpose robotics, even more particularly how central those are to this emerging industrial ecology of batteries and fabs and chips and AI compute and probably SMRs and drones, that we see an emerging demand function for fully sovereign robotic ecologies. It seems, to the extent, Peter, you were suggesting earlier, you're looking for other, maybe you don't want to call them sort of too scarce to fail resources, but robotics, I think, is a plausible candidate for wanting to be sovereign aligned resources in the near term future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had dinner with Rod Brooks, the founder of iRobot, when we were out in California a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And he reaffirmed what I think we all know, that our whole parts supply chain, component supply chain is garbage compared to what China has. Because all those years of manufacturing moving over to China, industrialization moving over to China, they developed a very, very flexible parts and components contract supply chain. So if you need something to build your robot, you can call someone and have them make it, and it'll be there in a few days. There's no equivalent in the US. So it's going to take a while to rebuild that whole supply chain. So what Alex said is exactly right. This is ripe for national involvement to kickstart it. It's also not naturally happening in the venture community. Mm-hmm. It's really tough for venture capitalists to plunk down 10, 20 million bucks for like a electric motor winding company or a gear company.
We should have a Manhattan style project for supply chain for robots and drones.
There are various initiatives that have been discussed, including famously perhaps the SoftBank initiative.
We heard this from Bert Bornick, CEO of OneX. I've heard this from Brett Adcock, from Elon directly. They've had to completely build their entire bottom-up supply chain internally. Every component is manufactured inside the company right now, which is insane.
What a waste.
But the other thing that's going to be interesting is there will be a scarcity in robots for the foreseeable future until production gets ramped up. So we're going to start to see governments probably bidding, like, we'll buy 1 million robots here in Saudi or the Emirates or Qatar in order to get early supplies delivered there. And that may bid up the prices in early days too. Good for the robot companies.
I would view any emerging robot scarcity as just a facet of compute scarcity. The most important robots are just going to be GPUs on legs, and the compute ultimately is, I think, the fundamental scarce factor here.
All right. Next item here is a interesting graph which asks the question: what if everyone in the U.S. drove like Waymo? So here's the extension. If every U.S. vehicle performed as well as Waymo, we'd prevent 33 to 39 deaths annually. So pretty profound. It's another.
I found a better related statistic.
Please.
Which is, it turns out about 50% of all the court cases in the U.S. are car accidents.
Wow.
50%. So
That's
you take out
insane.
a bunch of lawyers also, which, that's not bad.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. With all due respect to some lawyers, reducing the number is definitely.
But the deaths part, is huge.
And interesting for Waymo, nearly half of all Waymo impacts, crashes, happen under 1 mile per hour. So these are just bumps. They're not actually crashes. So
I suspect
crazy. I saw this stat and I said that's got to be global, not U.S., because that's about the total number of
it's not.
US
We
deaths.
kill
But
1.2 million people a year die around the world with car accidents globally.
around the world, yeah. Well, that's why I thought 40,000 out of 1.2 million is viable, but 40,000 in the U.S. isn't. But then if you read the fine print in the notes, it's actually a 90% reduction in fatal crashes.
It's huge.
And 15% of all organ donations come from auto accidents. Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Right. So I live here in Santa Monica, and Waymos are all over the place. I just started seeing the Zoox vehicle from Amazon going and collecting data. Right. It's a piloted vehicle with all of the LiDAR and cameras around it, going and mapping the streets. It was about a year ago that you saw all the piloted Waymo vehicles mapping the streets. So we're going to have Zoox, we're going to have Waymo, we're going to see Cybercab or whatever Elon calls it very, very soon.
Meanwhile, we have people attacking the Waymos.
Yeah.
Brad Templeton used to joke, because we don't want to be killed by robots. We'd much rather be killed by drunk people, which is what's happening today.
I suspect for at least most Americans, their first encounter with a generalist robot is going to be by encountering either by driving in or seeing a Waymo or FSD-based car or Zoox or equivalent. And this is just the beginning of a longer journey. We start with these generalist robots on the roads, and they'll be in our homes before we know it.
And guys, just a quick announcement. Dara, the CEO of Uber, will be joining us on stage at the Abundance Summit. And
very cool.
Yeah, super cool. And so Uber is partnered in part with Waymo. We'll be offering Waymo as part of your Uber app. And they're also working with Joby for flying cars. So super fun. We'll be talking about all of those things and where Uber is going in the future.
Flying cars is my big hope for technology in the near future.
Yeah? Tired of driving?
Airport transfers are just horrible.
Oh, it is awful. All right, we're going to wrap up with health and biotech. I think one of the most important subjects, at least in my life, is how do we double our human lifespan? How do we avoid all of the travesty of chronic disease? First article comes in from a friend, Joe Lebetz-LaCroix. Joe's company, he's the CEO of Retro Biosciences. It's one of Sam's companies. Sam has founded it with $180 million of backing back in 2021. Their mission is to add 10 healthy years on human lifespan. They're one of the teams competing for our $101 million X Prize Health Span. And Salim and Dave, since you're on the board of X Prize, I mean, pretty amazing. That competition, just for everybody, if you haven't heard of it, I raised $157 million for a global competition to add up to 20 healthy years on people's lives, in particular in immune, cognition, and muscle. And we now have over 730 teams that have entered that competition, which is pretty amazing, if you ask me. So
it's got to be a record, right?
It is.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, actually, for Elon's $100 million carbon prize, we had 1,300 teams. But I would have to say this is as hard or harder because you have to run effectively a clinical trial and prove on a human population that your therapy didn't just do cognition, didn't just do muscle or immune, it did all of them. So anyway, I love the fact that Retro is going after this. Their product is entering human trials. next year with a hope of in Australia in late 2025, and they're going to be hopefully getting something on the market next couple of years. This is called RTR242. It's an experimental Alzheimer's pill designed to restart the brain's natural recycling process of toxic proteins. This is your lymphatic system. When you're in deep sleep, your lymphatic system is clearing your brain of those toxic proteins. So one of the biggest things I had Mehmet Oz speaking at the Platinum event at their Abundance Longevity Summit as well. And his biggest concern for the future is neurodegenerative disease and also one other disease called loneliness. We should talk about that sometime. I want to end with this article. I find this fascinating. This is out of China. And one of the things about longevity in biotech is if it works in China, it'll work in Chicago. If it works in Boston, it'll work in Botswana. We all have the same biology. So this rocketed around the world as news this past weekend. So Chinese scientists have genetically engineered a gene called FOXO3 that is a critical stress-resistant transcription factor. And they've been able, as they modify this, to reduce aging by 3 to 5 years. And for me, this is a huge, huge deal. So in 61 different tissues. End of the day, we're going to start to see longevity becoming more and more real. And everyone listening, I want to let you know that the next 50 years that you're alive and hearing us on this podcast, it's going to be awesome.
Just don't get hit by a bus in the next couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. Don't die from something stupid in the interim.
Peter, there was a comment I heard a couple of years ago, and I wanted to just ratify where we are with that. Yeah. Somebody on one of the abundance stages said that we have the mice in labs today that are living to the equivalent of 300 years old already. Is that, and are we really there?
No, we're not there yet. You know, the average mouse is living on the order of 20 to 24 months. We've seen extension of 30 to 40%. I was just over at Harvard, spent the day and the weekend with David Sinclair, and then the day at the Wyss Institute, or the Wyss Institute with George Church. And those experiments where they hope to double the mouse's lifespan are going on right now. We've also seen the first epigenetic reprogramming trials are going on in humans starting in January. So Life Biosciences, one of David Sinclair's companies, is going into humans. It's been very successful in animal models, including non-human primates.
After this longevity trip, when's your best prediction of when we break through the aging barrier, escape velocity?
So I asked the smartest people on the trip that I know, and their belief is there is no upper limit to how long we can live. Let's begin with that. And the belief is that the breakthroughs required to understand why we age, how to slow it, stop it, reverse it, is going to fall at the knees of digital superintelligence. And, we heard Dario talk about this, doubling the human lifespan in 5 to 10 years. And, it's interesting. We had a bunch of scientists from MIT and Harvard principally at the summit. And they fell into two groups. Those that amongst themselves were consistent, saying, we're going to see this doubling, we're going to see this significant lifespan and health span extension. And those saying, nope, not going to happen. And just extremely on the other side, right?
Wow.
And so it's interesting because I define an expert as someone who can tell you exactly how it can't be done.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, Salim, I've asked this question of all of the best frontier models of the day, when do we get longevity escape velocity? And their consensus is 2030.
Yeah.
Which ironically is the same time when Bitcoin hits $1 million, according to all the frontier models.
Which is exactly what Ray predicted, 2030. It's like, damn it.
Ray was right.
Damn the man.
Get the t-shirt.
He may be proof that time travel is real.
Yeah, that and Elon. Yes, exactly. So everybody, you got to hang on, stay in good health, sleep, diet, exercise, mindset. Don't die from something stupid. You got hold on for the next 5-10 years. There are therapies coming, and they're significant therapies. I did a podcast with David Sinclair on Moonshots. If you haven't listened to it, please do.
It's an amazing podcast, that one. Yeah. It's a must listen.
Let me give kudos to the Moonshot community here one moment. When I did that podcast with David, he came on and he was really miffed. The Harvard White House, debate and headbutting had canceled all his funding. $4 million of funding got canceled, and he was on the verge of letting his entire research team go, all of his researchers. And I was just pissed, and I said, let's turn this around. And on the podcast, almost off the cuff, we announced this thing called Friends of Sinclair Lab, where folks would contribute $50,000. I was the first to offer to contribute, as was David himself. And since then, we have gotten over $4 million of donations from the people listening to this podcast.
Wow.
Which is insane. Wow. So we completely replaced the government funding.
I'm looking to buy a Ferrari. If anybody wants to donate to them.
No, but this is decentralized science.
It's
right?
great. I mean, it's citizen-driven, bottom-up science. It's so awesome.
And the challenge is that when you're funded by government and have peer review, you're stuck in incrementalism.
Yeah.
Anything dramatically different, they don't want to get it funded.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. Dave, what's your week look like for you, buddy?
Well, it's Friday, so. We have a lot of our best and brightest that are coming through the lab are getting funding right now. A lot of them are getting West Coast term sheets at like 2 or 3 times higher than the East Coast. So there's quite a bit of migration west going on. One of our coolest companies that we signed the term sheet in Mark Zuckerberg's old dorm room. And there's a poster of the Social Network movie signed by Mark Zuckerberg on the wall. So we signed the term sheet right in front of the poster. Then that got all around Harvard. So 20 people joined the company for no salary because it's so hot. Anyway, they're smoking hot now. It's called Biography. They're moving to the West Coast. So I got a whole bunch of open seats here in the lab. So I'm really excited to spend time on campus backfilling, we're going to try and get 16 more teams in. And, January is coming fast. MIT has January off.
Yes, IAP.
So that's the perfect time. Yeah. IAP.
Yes.
Perfect time to boot up a company. So
if you're at MIT or Harvard or Northeastern and you're hearing this podcast, first of all, Dave's a rock star. If you've got a couple of best friends and you want to start an AI company, where do they go, Dave?
Go to the Link Ventures website. Or just email Dan Oliveri or Kush Bavaria. Their names are on the website, and it's just K Bavaria or D Oliveri at Link Ventures. And you got to have at least 3 people that are bona fide best friends, and we'll check. We'll poke around and ask your other friends, are you really best friends? But we only bring in teams that are super tight knit. Keeps it all really, really fun.
Salim, how about you? What's the week ahead look like?
We're doing a whole bunch of planning with our ecosystem to think about how we leapfrog everything we've done in the past and go 10x faster, better, cheaper with all the offerings that we have. We have our next EXO 10x Shift workshop on October 15th. It's $100. People, those are all selling out. Those are great. And we cover the model and show people how to take their organization literally 10 to 100x now through that 2-hour workshop. And I've got a little bit of travel, but not too much before the madness towards the end of the month. Visioneering is coming up, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, for sure. And Alex, welcome back from your secret mission. And
Thank you.
Excited to work on our project together, which we'll unveil at some point. We're going to keep it secret for the time being. How about what's on your agenda?
Trying to accelerate the singularity, or whatever it is. Maybe singularity at this point isn't even the right term, but smoothing out and moving whatever we want to call it, the intelligence explosion, or if you're a technological determinist, what was always going to happen, the inevitable byproduct of building an internet and then compressing the internet and then using that to solve everything else. I think timelines are very short at this point. Every week, my timelines are getting shorter. Usually it's the case that I'm the accelerationista in the room, Not always, but usually. And my timelines are incredibly short at this point. So
my favorite thing these days in these podcasts is watching Alex's face as we rant about energy or healthcare or something. He's like, oh, superintelligence is going to just solve that. Why are we even talking about this? There's this great look on his face that shows it. It's so awesome.
You're reading my face, I think, correctly, Salim. There is a certain sense of hyper deflationary mentality. Why do anything?
It's really.
And
it's AI paralysis.
It's like the starship. It's like the starship who heads out, and when they get there, they find out warp drive had been invented, and
there's a term for it. It's called the weight equation, and it does cause singularity paralysis, for lack of a better term. And I'm seeing it more and more in every day in conversations I have, as it dawns on more and more subject matter experts that AI is about to transcend their capabilities in, call it 2 to 3 years, if the current extrapolations hold. What happens next? And I spend a lot of time thinking about that.
Amazing. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us as subscribers. If you haven't yet, subscribe so we can tell you when the next WTF episode is taking place. Hope you found this super useful. Be optimistic. We're living into the most extraordinary time ever in human history. A time where we can uplift every man, woman, and child, where each of us is going to be able to take on the grand challenges we desire and really go from success to significance on a global scale. So happy to be alive right now, and so happy to be with my Moonshot mates. All right, guys, until we see each other next time. Every week, my team and I study the top 10 technology metatrends that will transform industries over the decade ahead. I cover trends ranging from humanoid robotics, AGI, and quantum computing to transport, energy, longevity, and more. There's no fluff. Only the most important stuff that matters, that impacts our lives, our companies, and our careers. If you want me to share these metatrends with you, I write a newsletter twice a week, sending it out as a short 2-minute read via email. And if you want to discover the most important metatrends 10 years before anyone else, this report's for you. Readers include founders and CEOs from the world's most disruptive companies and entrepreneurs building the world's most disruptive tech. It's not for you if you don't want to be informed about what's coming, why it matters, and how you can benefit from it. To subscribe for free, go to Diamandis.com/metatrends to gain access to the trends 10 years before anyone else. All right, now back to this episode.